I didn't really realize the fact that, it's me and it's only me, and it can get very lonely. And so when I started my business, I really didn't have a huge support system of other creatives or a community of creatives.
Hey, it's Emily with Wildleaf Collab. These expert interviews are just real people, real conversations with expert advice. So sit back, grab your notebook, a cup of coffee, and listen to what they have to say. And don't forget to click subscribe so that you can stay tuned every time we have a new expert on the show. Hey everybody, welcome to this very special episode of The Wildleaf Show. Today I am joined by the very talented wedding photographer and mentor for creatives, Kara Evans. She's owner of Kara Evans Photography. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on as part of this series of what we wish we'd known when we started out. And specifically, you had reached out and said that you wanted to talk about, and I love this idea, about community and finding a support system as a small business owner and a creative entrepreneur, and how that really impacted your journey as well. So welcome. Thanks for being on. So tell us, before we dive into that specific topic, tell us a little bit about you and your business journey, and then we'll kind of dive into that.
Yeah, like Emily said, I'm Kara Evans. I am a wedding photographer and mentor for creatives, and I'm located in Chicagoland. I'm about an hour south of downtown. So just to kind of give you a place marker of where I am. But I've been in business for 7 years. This is my 7th year of business. So I actually started my business actually out of my cramped college dorm room. And then once I graduated, I was able to take this business full time. So I started as a photographer, photographing everything under the sun, as probably most do.
Yep, I was like guilty. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And in the more recent years, I just, honed it into family photography and wedding photography. And then most recently, I am just rocking the couples and just working with couples now for engagement and wedding days. So I'm loving it. And so back in 2018, I kind of branched out in my business and started offering one-on-one mentoring for creatives. And it has just been a super cool transformation in my business to just be able to, work with other creatives. And it's kind of a little bit of a passion project, outside from weddings. And it gives me kind of a really fun, creative outlets. So that's
totally
about me.
Love that. That's kind of similar to me. I started out in photography and graphic design, and just, the more you get involved in your community, which is what we're going to talk about today, the more you just realize that you love helping others. Yeah. So that's kind of what led to Wildleaf too. And it sounds like what led to your branch off as well too. So that's cool. I love that. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. So let's get into, when you and I connected, you said you really wanted to share with new business owners about, and this is so true, how we feel incredibly lonely at times. And the flip side of that is becoming not only involved in a creative community like Rising Tide and Tuesdays Together, but becoming really involved. Yeah. And I think that that's the key part there. I think a lot of, because you and I both are co-leaders of our local groups. And I think a lot of us will see people join the group and then we don't hear from them again. And then we hear maybe, it wasn't beneficial or things like that. Becoming actively involved is kind of the key there. So kind of talk us through, being the lonely and how being involved can change that and make you help you grow your business.
Yeah. So when I started my business, and again, I think like many of us, it kind of happened. It just kind of happened. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just had a passion for photography, and that's just kind of where things started. So for me, I really didn't have any, a foundation of business. And so and small business at that. And I didn't really realize the fact that, it's me and it's only me, and it can get very lonely. And so when I started my business, I really didn't have a huge support system of other creatives or a community of creatives. Sure, I had, my husband and my family that were supporting me and my friends. But outside of that, there are only so many conversations that you can have with your spouse of talking about business and asking what do you think about this? Or I had this situation. What do you think? Things like that. I love my husband to death and he loves me, but he's not a business owner. He doesn't understand and have that same sort of experience as I do. And so, things that I would be, needing support on, there was a little bit of a disconnect. And I didn't realize, that working from home, not having coworkers, that it could just get super lonely. You can just get, in your own, like, just head down. I have this to-do list. I have all these things to do. I have client work. I have client communication, whatever. So you were having that sort of interaction. But beyond that, I mean, you didn't really have a support system.
Right.
And so I really, I knew some local people. I mean, just from, small area, that sort of thing. I knew people, but it took that like active step of like, okay, like recognizing, all right, I'm lonely. It's a little bit lonely to be a small business owner. Like, what am I going to do about this? Because this is silly. And I'm sure other people are feeling like this too. And so a local photographer friend of mine, we just kind of connected to each other, and we, started just meeting for coffee dates. And just having that little bit of connection and like being able to meet someone for a cup of coffee, and talk business and talk life and balance and all of those things, it was seriously amazing. And so my friend actually, was like, I really think the Rising Tide Society and a Tuesdays Together chapter would really be beneficial. So we started the chapter. That was 3 years ago. And it has just been crazy to see, how that connection of, two people started, and then we had another photographer friend that joined us. So for the first probably 3 or 4 months of our group, there were 3 of us there, 3 photographers, like, leaning on each other, growing with each other, and just trying to learn from each other. Yeah. And I wish that early on in my business, I had been able to have that kind of community that I do now. Yeah. And the kind of community that I started to have in 2016, because, I was 3 years into my business at that point, and I really didn't have that kind of community. And I'm sure you recognize that as well, because, you just get so caught up in just, I have these things to do. I have this client work to turn around. And you kind of put that other stuff on the back burner, and then it's like, oh, but.
Very similar story for me. I was several years into my business, and like you said, you talk to your spouse, and I'm glad you brought that up, or you talk to your best friend, but if they're not a small business owner, you can't trust that they really get it, And so similar for me, I was telling her before we started, I just happened to be at the very first Tuesdays Together meeting here in Tallahassee. Like, I didn't realize it was the first one. I just went. So it's been really amazing to see my photography and graphic design businesses, how much they've blossomed, because those first few years, you just feel like you're spinning wheels. Like, you're like, I don't know what to do, because all you have is your own ideas, your own thoughts. You don't have a sounding board and another business owner who's like, well, I tried this, maybe you could. And I think that's what the community, especially Tuesdays Together and Rising Tide, offer is a sounding board, and somebody, another business owner, whether they're in the same career field or not, to be like, what about this?
Yeah. And like, it opens your eyes to the fact that, like you said, whether they're in the same business as you, in the creative world, like, I have amazing friends now that own a bakery, that run a wedding venue, that run a coffee shop locally. Like, it is incredible to have those types of connections now that I otherwise maybe wouldn't have had. I maybe would have connected to those people some way, shape, or form by, using their local businesses and being a customer for them. But, it is so cool to open up that door and just, feel like, hey, there are people that, are experiencing some of the same things I am. Or there's someone that maybe has, they're experiencing something that I've experienced before, and I can help them. And I mean, it is just, and whether it's, a Tuesdays Together meeting like you and I really believe in, or if it's even just, gathering a couple local creative friends and grabbing a cup of coffee every couple months.
Yes, absolutely.
If it's a virtual coffee date, if it's a virtual happy hour, whatever it is, finding someone that you can lean on and that understands you. I mean, it is like, I think that is just one of the big secrets to having a small business and being a creative entrepreneur.
It really is. It really is. And even I know friends who are not part of Tuesdays Together because their schedules just don't allow it, but they will like jump on like we are on a Zoom call and literally just work on whatever they're working on, but they've got their friend pulled up and they can like chat with them if they want to. So even something like that. But I do want to touch on, we talked about this a little bit, how taking that first step to going to a meeting can be really scary, or like reaching out to a competitor, because we're taught from a very young age, like sports and everything, like competition, beat them, don't talk to them, like, So how do you overcome that? Do you have any tips on overcoming that first step of just going and meeting a competitor and making them a friend instead?
So I think it's natural that it's going to be a scary thing. It's going to be something unknown, and I think people are like, gosh, I'm nervous about this. I'm just not going to do it. It's out of my comfort zone.
Right.
I'm just better off, not putting my energy into that. And I think it's important to just challenge yourself. All right, give it one shot. If you don't like it, if it didn't resonate with you, if you didn't connect, don't go again, whatever, figure out something different, but give it a shot. I was just talking to one of my mentoring clients earlier this morning, and she was telling me how it's super intimidating just because, like you said, we are taught to be competitors.
Yes.
And, especially for myself, like in the photography realm of things, it can sometimes get a little bit tricky, that
Sure.
people, they don't want to collaborate. They want to have that really tough competition in a local area.
Yeah.
And I think, a place where you can meet, break down those walls and actually get to know each other. I think there's so much more power in that. And it takes so much less energy in that. So, I mean, and a lot of it is, someone has had a negative experience before they've, gone to a meetup or they've had a coffee date with a competitor or something like that. They've had a negative experience in the past. Maybe it was online, maybe it was in person. Maybe it was at another gathering or an event that they, were both at. But I mean, I think people really, really go back to those like super negative experiences. And then they think, well, something like a Tuesdays Together or a coffee meetup for creatives or something like that. Like that's scary. That's out of my comfort zone. It's going to be like that last experience I had. And so, like I said, I think challenge yourself to just give it a shot.
Absolutely.
Be open to it.
I've tried several networking groups because it's better to try them all, right? And at least see if because you never know who you're going to meet. Not everybody's at Tuesdays Together. Right. There's like chambers of commerce in your local businesses, local communities, things like that. Our town here in Tallahassee has one for younger generations, and there's kind of two versions of it. And I had gone to both. And like you said, it just was not a super great experience for me. It wasn't awful, but I just did not my cup wasn't filled up, like my networking, my support cup, my love cup was not filled up going to those events. So when I found Tuesdays Together, I thought, well, we'll try it, and amazingly, I think credit to the good leaders and the other people that were in it at the time. They've gone on to be my friends, and like, we're photographers, we're technically competitors, but it's like every day that we're communicating, whether on the group or whatever, referring to each other, working together, actually like second shooting weddings together, like that. It can be hard looking outside and having never done it before to think, how do you get best friend photographers? Like, how is that a thing? But, like I think we're both telling you, go to these meetings, hold hands, think about, realize that we're all in this together, and you can have that.
And even break down those walls in the sense, like send a message to, some local photographers, or, maybe you're a calligrapher locally and there are some other, people locally. Send a message and say, hey, I'm a local photographer and I'm just trying to meet some people. I just want to collaborate. I want to create community, and I just want to get to know some people locally. Do you want to have a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Put yourself out there in that way. Maybe that's a little less intimidating for you than going to a meeting with 10 or 20 people that you don't know. Sure. And I think the really cool thing of it all is once like those people that a few months ago, we had a girl that came to our Tuesdays Together meeting, and for months she had messaged me back and forth and been like, I really want to go, but like, I might have something going on, or I'm a little nervous, or, it was just like something. And I was like, girlfriend, you just got to come. You just got to come to the meeting. And so she finally made it. And afterwards I sent her a message and I was like, it was so great to see you. Like, thank you so much for coming. I hope it was valuable to you. And she was like, it wasn't as scary as I thought. Like, it was okay. And like, it's just, you just got to get over that, like, the unknown. And you know what? I'm not saying it's all going to be sunshine and cupcakes and everything's going to be great. Not every experience is going to be great, but at least put yourself out there, give it a shot. If it doesn't resonate with you, fine. Go to the next thing, find something different. Reach out, one-on-one to someone, or try a different group or a networking group. But I mean, instead of wallowing at home and putting negative energy into like,
what ifs and maybe.
I'm so lonely and I wish I had someone that got this. And, nobody wants to like collaborate with me, or, all the photographers locally are just, they're all competitors. And like, instead of doing that, that takes way too much work and way too much time and way too much energy. Just like get over it and try it.
Yes. And it's amazing, even if you don't like stick with it, even if it doesn't end up being totally your jam, like those 2 groups that I went to that I was like, it's not for me. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how many clients of mine that I have now, or how many times I'll go to a meeting for another meeting. They're like, didn't you used to be part of that? Like they just remember the name. And so if nothing else, it's getting your name out there. Mm-hmm. And I think that also plays off of, which I talked about this with Jasmine yesterday when I interviewed her. So check that out if you guys didn't watch it. But that she mentioned just saying it, putting it out there that this is what you're doing is amazing, how much that can build your self-esteem and it can get your network going. Because I think a lot of us are side hustling when we start. A lot of us are brand new to it. And so we're kind of afraid to like say, like I'm a photographer. Like we usually say like, this is what I do at my full-time job. And on the weekends I do this.
Yeah.
But going to these networking events, finding that community and just putting it out there. This is what I do. That will also help build you up too, build your confidence. It'll get your name out there and people will start associating you with that as your career.
Yeah. And they're going to start seeing your work out in the community and they're going to say, oh, that's,
that's so-and-so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I love that. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about in specific about, the loneliness, how community helps, things like that? Anything that you feel like we haven't touched on today yet?
I just think, the sooner you try to get plugged in, I think the better, and I think you can agree with me. It's just in some capacity, get yourself plugged in and find a community because, small business can be lonely at times. And it is just an incredible, incredible resource for your business. And I think really one of the keys to success to just have a community, have a couple people that you can confide in, that you can lean on, and they can do the same with you. And I mean, I think you'll see really great growth in your business and just those networking circumstances and those relationships.
Yes. I totally agree to that. And I can attest to that because that was me. I was on the struggle bus for like 3 years. And yes, my business was growing, but it was not until I started networking and really getting out there and meeting new people and collaborating that things really started to take off. So I'm a big champion of finding your community, finding your tribe too.
Yeah. So. And the power of referrals also, once you are building that community and that tribe, like it's incredible because everybody can lean on each other. Everybody can support each other. And it's where the magic happens.
It really is. It really is. So I love that. I'm so glad we talked about that today.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. You have first off, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me at www.karaevansphotographer.com or on Instagram.
In the description below.
Or on Instagram at Kara Evans Photog.
Awesome. Love that. And you also want to mention that you have your one-on-one virtual mentoring for female creatives as well, which I love and think is awesome.
Yeah, it's seriously, it fills my cup up. And it's just like, it is a super awesome creative outlet outside of my weddings. And which is funny because my weddings are creative, but it's just a different kind of, creative outlet. So it has been super exciting in my business. And so we're booking throughout this year. So it's been fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Make sure you check that out too, guys. So I think that's it for today. So thank you so much for joining me today, Kara. I really appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see you, Wild.